You're listening to the Begin Within Health Show with Nate Slager. For more, go to beginwithin.fit/podcast, or to enroll right now in our flagship coaching program, go to beginwithin.fit/coaching. It's not just the foods that you are eating that are impacting your health and your fitness. It's not just the foods you choose. Is it veggies? Is it potato chips? Is it steak? Is it chicken? Is it a banana? Is it an apple? It's not just what you're eating, but it's how you're eating it that is impacting your health and fitness. Today, I have an archived interview for you from a good friend of the show. Her name is Becca Kandler. She is going to be here with us once again, sharing some of the things that she has picked up over her years and helping people improve their health, improve their fitness, and even specifically to focus on losing weight. She is, I would call her a behavior change guru. She is passionate about helping people to make changes to their habits in order to live up to their optimal potential. She's got a master's degree in exercise psychology, a personal training certification from the American College of Sports Medicine. She's been in this industry for almost 20 years. And she's been a habit change counselor, a personal trainer. Now she's a fitness business leader. And she's here today. She's going to share with us some of the, I'll call them hacks, that she has picked up and implemented in order to help people to improve their health and fitness. Little changes that she has found make a big difference. And so we're going to talk about those. I'm going to share them with you here on the show today. So a few things that I want you to listen for that are going to make a big difference in how you eat. Here they are. First of all, developing awareness. We're going to talk about that in the interview. Developing awareness around the process of eating. Like really taking it apart. Like what are the elements of having a meal, consuming a meal, getting it from the refrigerator or wherever it is down into your belly. We're going to talk about the process and how we can make little changes in the process in order to make improvements in health and fitness. And that's the second point, is making those changes, changing our environment as much as possible. We've talked about that recently on the show, the fact that our environment very much impacts our actions. It impacts our habits. It impacts who we are as a result. So we're going to talk about how we can make changes in the environment. And then finally, we're going to talk about a bit of psychology. We are going to talk about working with an already established need. We're taking a look at how we can analyze the fact that whatever it is that we might be doing that has gotten us here, wherever we are, wanting to improve our health, wanting to improve our fitness, for example, whatever's gotten us here was serving us in some way. We're going to take a look at how we can analyze that and use it to our advantage in this process. So here's my interview with Becca Kandler.
Over my years of working with people, I've made numerous observations about like how people eat and the lack of mindfulness and or the lack of chewing. And some people openly admit that they just inhale their food and they're not joking about it.
Okay.
And that how that can influence how much somebody eats without even realizing it.
What would a healthy eating habit look like in terms of mindfulness?
Yeah, having some intentionality. I think I've talked to a lot of clients, and like we've even talked before about not being distracted while we're eating. Like
Mhm.
while you're eating, if you are actually paying attention to what's on your plate and what's going plates into your mouth, as opposed to being distracted by television or phones and devices. Um, that before you know it, you've just eaten out of the whole pot, whatever you might have just
Mhm.
versus you didn't even transfer it to a plate, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm
Yeah.
watching this TV show, not paying attention to all what I'm feeling. If you're not paying attention to what you're eating, like you're probably also not paying attention to your body and the signals that it's sending you regarding being full, right? Because you're completely disengaged yourself.
What you're recommending is almost becoming more in tune to the eating process and maybe even to the food itself, like almost being more interested in the event of eating and that's really
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There are some schools of thought that will tell you that it should take twice as long to eat your food as it did to prepare it.
Okay.
And that's like hands-on preparation. So like
Mm.
if you're, something's in the oven for an hour, it doesn't take you 2 hours. But like the hands-on preparation of something. And I ask myself this and I even challenge you, like, do I do
Mhm.
does it take me? I think I have to be really intentional about it and kind
Yeah.
of slow down and not allow myself to be distracted. Like sit down at an actual table.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I've been trying when I have the opportunity to, like if I'm at home, working from home or whatever, and I'm okay, it's lunchtime. Instead of sitting in computer and like eating and working, like sitting down at the table with just my food.
Yeah,
Every what I've noticed is, and actually Amanda noticed this because now we eat dinner together. Um, I take a lot longer now than she does to eat.
yeah,
And she's like, "You are it takes it like, you're chewing forever now." Like, she's fine with it, but it's kind of interesting that I think that intentionality now has led me to, without even knowing it, just slowing down more when I'm eating. And I think that might be maybe just a normal part of the process, right?
yeah. I think it's a normal part of the process, right? If you're not distracted, you're sitting at your table, whether it's with your family or alone, with a plate of food in front of you. I think you're just naturally going to slow down. And you're also going to explore what's sitting in front of you a little bit more. Like you're going to look at the plate. You're paying attention to maybe the ratios of what's on your plate because your attention isn't elsewhere.
Mhm. What about, we talked about this a little bit before too, but, um, even like some of the little, I would call them like tricks, but that you can employ even when it comes to like dishes and utensils. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
tell me about that.
These are some of my favorite go tos for especially people that know they overeat, right? Or the individuals who are just inhaling their food. And like the first one, it might seem like common sense, but it's just using a smaller plate. Right. Transferring the food from whatever pot that you've cooked it in or prepared it in onto a plate. Um, and that's going to lessen your portion using a smaller plate. Along those same lines, as I encourage people to use smaller utensils, like you have the little fork and the little
Mhm.
spoon that came
Yeah.
in your silverware set, like eat with those. That's less food is being transferred at a time, right? From plates, your mouth, um, blowing you down. And if there were a lot of cases, so I worked at a weight loss resort where, a lot of our guests were like self-proclaimed like overeaters and inhalers, for lack of a better way to say that.
Mm.
And I would slow them down by making them eat with chopsticks. Like, and no matter what you're eating, right? It's gonna slow you down. It can be really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
But it will it'll bring your attention to the task at hand. You have no other choice other than to think about it.
there's only so much you can pick up. It might be frustrating. You're forced to slow down because you're maybe dropping things that a big spoon would just scoop right up.
Right.
Um, hmm, cool. As you were talking, I was uh thinking a little bit. We have some friends, and we joke that they make it look like so much fun. Like when we go out to eat with them, and they all share like what they get, but they're like tasting it like they're food, food taste testers. I'm trying to, like the judges on a cooking show. They like just take a little bit and then just like savor it. And like from across the table, it actually looks like they're enjoying the whole meal, like so much more because they're
Yes.
eating that way. And I was thinking like probably that's the way that we should be all eating, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think this makes me think about two things.
Mhm.
Is the first one is that scientists say that you only really taste your first two bites.
Hmm.
Like, and after that, like your taste is like basically you're desensitized.
Yeah.
Um, so like really taking the time to enjoy those first two bites and then pay attention to that sometimes can cause you to pause and either stop or at least slow down and circle back. Um, and the second one I forgot.
Ooh, uh, we've talked too, and like I'm a nail biter, right? I have been for most of my life. Like we've talked a little bit about that, um, like hand to mouth kind of compulsion, and
Yes.
some of those foods that are easy to just keep popping tend to be some we know, like the salty snacks that end up leaving us not happy, right, in the long run with our results. What are some ways around that you've found?
Yeah. So I think this is something that you want to work with when trying to change behavior because it's meeting some level of need,
Mm,
right? That hand to mouth, let's call it compulsion. It circles back to like Freudian theory. And that it's the same thing that has like smokers smoking with their cigarette. It's that connection. It is meeting some kind of need, whether you realize it or not. So if we can work with that by making healthier choices, um, I know that I have some level of that. So when I'm going to a meal, I cut my food into tiny pieces. I I also use like a small fork. So as much as I can be going forth, I know that that's serving some need.
mhm.
Which is since I know that I can work with it. Like oftentimes, right, snacking, it's so uh that's you. Make a better choice. Like popcorn's not all right. It's how much of it are we eating and what are we putting on it?
Hmm,
Right. So an air popped popcorn is going to still get us something you need at the end of a long, hard day when trying to relax. Maybe let's work with it
mm,
instead of against it. Uh,
interesting. Huh. So it's kinda like, oh, I feel I have the inclination to eat, like, to snack, but if I'm more in tune to the fact that I'm not really hungry, kinda saying like, "Oh, well, maybe it's that need that needs to be met, and I'm gonna do that, but with something maybe healthier," right?
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
"Oh, I need a really tasty snack." I don't. I just need something that I can pop in there, little baby carrots or whatever, right?
Right. Nope. Exactly. Yeah. Something that you can like portion and still get that. Like, and alternatively, sometimes it's just occupying the mouth can satisfy that need as well. So this is where sometimes chewing gum can be a substitute.
Mhm.
Um, it's for some people, if it's like if you're not sure that you're hungry, try chewing a piece of gum. You can't tell me you're like, I think I'm hungry, but I'm not sure. Like, try a piece of gum and then tell me if you're hungry or it's occupying the mouth. Or Jolly Rancher,
Mhm.
Lifesaver, something, as long as you don't chew on those, like it's going to occupy your mouth for a period of time. And then while that is in your mouth, you should be able to tell like whether you're truly or not.
Hmm. Okay. Cool. So maybe just like a final question, if this is like kind of all new uncharted territory for someone, um, and a conversation like this leads them to feel like, oh my goodness, I've I don't even know where to start. I have so many changes I have to make. What would you recommend that person do first? Like, what would be like the smallest step to move in the right direction?
Think like one of two things is either first, like sitting down at a table without distraction, or when you eat,
Okay.
truly pay attention yourself, like have some introspection there. And the second, like if you already do that, because I know a lot of families that already like families sit down at the table, right? Is smaller plates,
Okay.
doing the smaller plates, smaller portions, um, to minimize it. Would be my first two kind of simple, non-invasive go-tos to start changing those eating behaviors.
All right, there you have it. I want to thank Becca once again for being on the show. If that sounded familiar to you, some of our conversation there, that is because, like I mentioned in the intro, that was an archived interview that I had with Becca. Actually, one of our most listened to interviews. And the first time that we made that available was back in episode number 5. Episode number 5. I can't even believe was nearly 3 years ago, which is coming up on the 3-year mark later this month at the time this episode is airing. So I want to thank Becca once again for being a good friend of the Begin Within Health show, really from the very beginning. But before I leave you, I want to encourage you to focus on an action step, something that you can adjust, something that you can change moving forward. And as we look at steps we can take, we're always interested in the low-hanging fruit, right? The things that we can do the easiest, the things we can grab the easiest that are going to make a positive difference. Perhaps what's the thing that you can most easily change that's going to make the biggest difference in your health and fitness moving forward? That's my question for you. And if you're like me, you're probably thinking about those little changes, those little hacks that you can make to your environment in order to encourage you to slow down as you're eating. As we slow down, things are happening physiologically. Things are happening differently than if we're eating quickly. And so slowing down helps us, it benefits us just in terms of digestion, right? For example, physiologically, it helps us to improve our health. But slowing down does something else. It helps us to develop more awareness. The more time that it takes us to consume the food, the more opportunity we have to become aware of what's really happening. How am I really feeling? And again, it's not just a matter of hunger versus fullness. Those are great things to become more aware of, and slowing down helps us with that. But it helps us to become aware of some of those other things that we discussed in the interview, the already established needs that we have, perhaps for comfort, for distraction, things like that. What's really going on here? Is this just about hunger and fuel, or is there something more? As we slow down, we have the opportunity to start to reflect on some of those bigger things and getting to know ourselves better. And of course, as we get to know ourselves better, we can make better choices moving forward. We become healthier versions of ourselves just because we're growing, just because we're getting to know who we are more fully. So I want to encourage you to do that. What might be one of the little hacks, maybe one that we mentioned already in this episode, in this interview, what might be one of the littlest hacks that you can implement? Just give it a try and see how it benefits you. Do you have one? Do you have one figured out? Can you commit to doing that just for the next day or so and just see what happens? I'd love to know how it benefits you. Feel free to reach out to me on social media at Nate Slager. If you haven't done so already, please rate and review the show. You have, just by listening, by rating and reviewing the show, by sharing it with others who will benefit from it, you have helped me to keep this in the top 10% of all podcasts. I thank you so much for that. And I ask you, please, if you haven't done so, to please do so. Right now, as soon as you're done listening to the episode, your next step is to rate and review the show, please. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'll talk with you soon. Keep taking good care of yourself.